Does look pale, he does look sick, so let's talk about this. Joining me now is Rinckey, a military lawyer, and Matthew Farwell, a writer for Rolling Stone and a former Afghanistan veteran. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Matthew,
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Matthew, I want to start with you. As you look at this video in writing about Bowe Bergdahl, with your own experiences in Afghanistan, what goes through your mind?
I mean, relief, frankly. I've been following this case since it happened, and I'm grateful that we're getting him back and that Bob and Sgt Bergdahl will be able to see their son soon.
Sgt Bergdahl has been, well, somewhat demonized. How do you view him, Matthew?
You know, I'm a bit bewildered by him. I really don't know, but I'm not willing to rush to judgment on him as so many people seem to be so willing to do. And I find it a bit curious that many of the soldiers from his former unit that are coming on networks such as CNN and Fox are being arranged by Republican strategists, and that this has all been so politicized when it's really a tragedy for everyone and it's a human drama that we all need to take a step back and just give time for the facts to come out, give the family some respect, because they've gone through 5 years of sheer hell. And so is Bowe.
And Greg, I want to ask you this question as a military lawyer. If you were to represent the family, what would you be looking at in particular in this video?
Well, I think what we're looking at here is we're looking at an American soldier that's being released. I mean, at this point, I think we don't jump to any judgments as to how he was captured or how he potentially walked off the base. I think at this point we need to focus on the mental well-being and the health of this soldier and getting him back to American society. And then we deal with the questions that are later going to come. As a defense attorney, I mean, obviously, Sgt Bergdahl really needs to be careful with what he says, and I think he should be represented before any questioning.
Do you suppose in the end he will be charged with anything?
In my opinion, I don't believe he's going to be charged at court-martial. I think that there could be other options for the Army. An investigation could potentially separate him administratively or potentially separate him medically, whether it be for a medical reason or a mental health reason. Even assuming that Sgt Bergdahl did walk off of the fire base, we don't know the reason, we don't know the intent, we don't know if he was suffering from a mental health issue at the time. So I don't see this turning into a court-martial, but I think there's the potential that there could be an administrative or a medical separation for this soldier.
And Greg, in the article in Rolling Stone, you guys pointed out that the unit that Bergdahl served in wasn't exactly the best-run unit. Can you talk more about that?
Are you asking me that question?
I'm sorry, Matthew. I'm asking Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at the footage that Sean Smith from The Guardian shot with Bowe's unit just prior to his disappearance, I looked at that as a former infantryman who had served in that area, and I saw a bunch of undisciplined cowboys, frankly. And I showed it to other friends that were also in the infantry and also had pretty high standards of professionalism, and they saw the same thing.
Well, when you say undisciplined cowboys, what do you mean?
They're running around in baseball caps, you know, not wearing their helmets, which is standard kit, kind of jumping around, not acting like a professional American soldier. They didn't seem to be very well led, and they didn't seem to be executing their duties very well.
So as a military attorney, Greg, would that enter into the equation once you're helping this young man and your family, hypothetically?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The chain of command is going to come into the spotlight here as well. There was an investigation that was done 5 years ago, so some of these questions probably have already been answered, and you know, it's something that obviously is going to be looked at closer, but as a defense attorney or military defense attorney, looking at the chain of command and how the unit was run is absolutely going to be on the table.
Well, and it should be noted, too, that his platoon leader was relieved of command just a month prior to that incident. So, I mean, that points to a problem in the unit, you know, right there.
Interesting. So if you have a soldier on
Absolutely.
base, for example, and I'll pose this question to you, Greg, if you have a soldier like this who's troubled, and clearly he was doubting why he was in Afghanistan, that was clear, right? So if you don't have good leadership, how do you find the help that you need?
Well, that's clearly the problem. I mean, a good leader, a good military leader, a good officer should recognize if there's issues with one of their troops and either have them evaluated by a mental health provider or medevaced out. And that's really going to be the question here. If there were all these warning signs around this soldier, why wasn't it dealt with? There's a lot of questions that are not answered at this point.
And Matthew, I want you to get it. I want to leave you with the last word, because I think
Yes,
there's
ma'am.
been so many derogatory things said about Sgt. Bergdahl when all the facts aren't in yet. So describe to me how you see him as a person and how we should be thinking about him.
You know, well, I don't know him. I know his family quite well. I admire his family. I've spent quite a bit of time with them. They came to my brother's funeral. My brother was a helicopter pilot and was buried in Idaho when his Black Hawk crashed. And so from his family, I see a educated, well-read, thoughtful young man who was put into a situation that I don't think he expected. And I think he reacted poorly to the situation he was in. And I think he'll regret that for quite a long time, but I don't think we should rush to damn him immediately.
Matthew
Or at all.
Farwell. Matthew Farwell, Greg Rinckey, thanks so much for your insight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Still to come in the newsroom, scary moments of the skies over